Our newscast tonight, despite South Korea's offer of aid and dialogue, North Korea apparently has other things in mind. Pyongyang promises more provocations if Seoul goes ahead with its current North Korean policy in joint military drills. $14.5 billion in investments and a goal of 180,000 new jobs. The Korean government announces support measures for the nation's service sector so it can bloom into a new growth engine. Iraq's president nominates a new prime minister to force out Nouri Maliki. What might that mean for the nation's fight against Islamic State militants? We have those answers and much more. An early edition at 6.
It's August 12th, 6 in the evening on a Tuesday here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Hyundai.
And I'm Daniel Cho. Thank you for joining us for early edition at 6. We begin with the government's plan to make the nation's service sector a new growth engine.
The symbolic Hangang River in Seoul is going to get a makeover for the first time in 30 years.
And other measures will cover sectors ranging from hospitals to resort complexes. Our Hwang Ji-hye starts us off.
The government will cut red tape, write special laws, and promote competition to help develop 7 service sectors into a new growth engine. During a meeting led by President Park Geun-hye on Tuesday, the government identified medical, tourism, financial, distribution, software, contents, and education industries as promising service sectors and confirmed a string of measures to boost investment in them.
We will create momentum for our economy to escape from its heavy dependence on exports and the manufacturing industry, and will aim for growth that's led by the service sector and domestic demand.
It will streamline regulations to lure foreign for-profit hospitals and provide subsidies for hospitals that attract foreign patients to Korea. The plans call for more than doubling the number of foreign patients to 500,000 by 2017 from 210,000 last year. It will also push through 4 resort complex development plans on the islands of Yeongjong-do and Jeju that will boost investments by around $8.5 billion. Regulatory reform will also take place in the nation's financial sector. The government will gradually ease the current 15% limit on daily stock price movement to 30%. It expects the measure to stimulate the local stock market and strengthen the market's price-setting mechanism, although there are concerns that it could fuel stock price volatility. Overall, the measures, which come as part of President Park's 3-year economic innovation plan, are expected to boost investment by around $14.5 billion and create 180,000 jobs. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
The Trade Ministry, in the meantime, has announced its plans to help locally oriented small and mid-sized companies go global, and that's by helping them find clients abroad. Here's our Song Ji-sun with more.
If things pan out as the government hopes, some 10,000 small and mid-sized companies will find new buyers overseas to more than double their sales in the next 3 years. That, ministry officials say, will likely more than triple the number of workers employed by these companies. They cited a report by the Korea International Trade Association saying job growth at exporting companies is 4 times higher than those relying solely on the domestic market. The Trade Ministry will designate scores of trading houses to help match the companies with foreign buyers and develop a program to dispatch retired trading experts to help them utilize new export channels. In a meeting with trade officials on Tuesday, President Park Geun-hye stressed the need for the government to provide support for the smaller companies that lack experience when they expand overseas.
내수 판매만 하던 중소 중견기업이 수출 시장에 뛰어드는 것은 수영장에서 수영하던 사람이 바다 수영에 도전하는 것과 같다고 생각합니다.
The government will also take steps to make online commerce more profitable for them by streamlining online documentation procedures by the end of this month. In addition, the government will set aside additional $1.6 billion in soft loans to help these new exporters link up with overseas customers and provide better insurance arrangements to protect them from currency fluctuations. 송지선, Arirang News.
The owners of 1,800 Hyundai automobiles will be eligible to receive up to $390 in compensation over inaccurate information regarding fuel mileage. But the voluntary act most likely will not be enough to settle a number of lawsuits against the company. Our Son Jung-in has more.
In a press release Tuesday, Hyundai Motor said it has decided to revise the fuel economy label on its Santa Fe model vehicles from 14.4 kilometers per liter of diesel to 13.8 kilometers and compensate owners up to $390. The company said the voluntary measure is in response to a ruling by Korea's Transportation Ministry, which said the fuel economy of the mid-size SUV was exaggerated and instructed them to take follow-up measures. Hyundai denies intentionally exaggerating its fuel economy figures and added that some discrepancies could occur in the mileage depending on the standards and methods of calculation. They came up with the $390 figure by calculating the national average for mileage of SUVs, which came to 14,527 kilometers per year. The compensation does not preclude Hyundai Motor from lawsuit, though. The owners of nearly 1,800 vehicles spread over 6 different models, including the Santa Fe, have filed suits seeking up to around $3,000 for failure to state the correct fuel efficiency. A lawyer working on behalf of the group said they cannot accept the $390 in compensation as it is too low, nearly half of what companies in the U.S. would offer. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
South Korea awaits North Korea's response to its offer for high-level talks. But Pyongyang's official media is pressing ahead with its hostile campaign against the South Korean government.
Well, Seoul appears determined, though, to soothe the tensions on the peninsula and mend ties with Pyongyang. Our Foreign Ministry correspondent Hwang Seung-hee reports.
A day after South Korea's surprise proposal for dialogue, North Korea threatened further provocation should Seoul and Washington go ahead with their joint Ulji Freedom Guardian military exercises next week. North Korea's state-run Nodongshinmun warned Tuesday its threats of retaliation against such war games should not be taken as empty words. It accused the South of turning a blind eye on nuclear threats from the United States, while wickedly pressing Pyongyang to give up what it calls justified nuclear program in the North as a precondition to building trust. This as Seoul awaits Pyongyang's response to its offer for high-level talks next Tuesday at the border village of Panmunjom to discuss issues of mutual concern. Seoul officials have indicated that the South is willing to discuss Pyongyang's demands to lift South Korean sanctions on North Korea and allow southern tourists to resume tours to the North Korean resort of Mount Kumgang. The offer for dialogue followed Seoul's decision to provide Pyongyang more than $13 million in aid through the World Food Program and the World Health Organization. President Park Geun-hye is expected to introduce further measures to better ties in her Liberation Day speech on Friday. The shift in tone comes after months of tensions between the two Koreas. But whether Seoul will stick to its fresh strategy of using the carrot will depend entirely on Pyongyang's next move. Hwang Seung-hee, Arirang News.
But could that next move from Pyongyang be a fourth nuclear test?
Well, the U.S.-based website 38 North says recent satellite images suggest Pyongyang may have completed preparations at its Punggye-ri nuclear test site, pointing to the fact that no new activity has been detected there in recent months. If the test site is in fact prepped and ready to go, 38 North says related personnel would only be waiting for an order from above.
Given past experiences with the regime, the website estimates it will take the North about 6 to 8 weeks to conduct a detonation once an order is received. And the last time North Korea conducted a nuclear test was in February last year. And going back to the possible resumption of inter-Korean dialogue, for more, we are joined by Dr. Wun ByungChoi from Seoul National University.
Of course, he is a reliable expert in international politics. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Well, let's start with this particular question. South Korea, we're reaching out an olive branch. North Korea, walking all over and stepping all over it. What are we supposed to make of this situation right now?
Yeah, I think basically it's good news for Korean people. And if the North accept South Korea's proposal, it should be a very good turning point to improve South-North relations. And in addition to humanitarian aid, the South proposed talks on the reunion of families separated by the Korean War and other issues of mutual concerns. In my view, it seems important to South Korea send a signal is prepared to discuss other issues of mutual concern, as well as the reunion of separated people. And other issues of mutual concern may include such issues as reopening of tours to Mountain Kumgang and cancellation of 5204 action, which is prohibiting any kind of trade between the two Koreas. So discussing these issues are critical to North Korea because North Korea needs to get bulk cash from South in order to achieve its economic growth. So if high-level talks is held, South-North relations may take a positive direction, even though there might be some fluctuations sometimes. However, we also need to remind the two Koreans had the previous round in February this year, but produced no major agreement. So I'd like to say do not have too high expectations for this.
And when you say 524 sanctions, you mean the restrictions that were imposed by the previous Lee Myung-bak administration on North Korea. Now, why is South Korea changing its approach in dealing with North Korea at this particular juncture, though?
Yeah, in my view, there might be two different reasons. Firstly, this is a kind of carrot to make North Korea to accept South Korea's proposal for high-level talks. This sends a message to North. South Korea is ready to help North Korea economically if the North accepts South Korea's proposal. And furthermore, President Park Geun-hye has openly said reunification would be a bonanza for the two Koreas. So it is important for President Park to make a pave the ways towards reunification, such as initializing the Korean Peninsula Trust process. Providing humanitarian aid is a part of plans for the Korean Peninsula Trust process.
Well, just very quickly, I just wanted to go back to my first question. What about North Korea's very negative response? I mean, it's anticipated because they've always been angry and feeling victimized most of the times. Should we just conveniently ignore that and just go on with our agenda?
I think it's very common for North Korea to make a verbal attack to South Korea. So there might be another two reasons for North Korea. First of all, they wouldn't like to accept South Korea's proposal without any good condition for them, and also they need to very political solidarity in their own country. I mean, to put together North Korean people on the North Korean regime. So they need to make evil outside.
So it's a matter of insecurity and pride for North Korea.
That's right.
Well, I mean, some would say that, but I mean, what would be some of the things that will help inter-Korean relations take a positive turn? You did mention that if this were to happen, then it will be a critical turning point for inter-Korean relations.
It's very important for two Koreas at this moment to make a good relationship each other because Park Geun-hye administration would like to make good progress in terms of the Korean Peninsula trust process, and North Korea also needs to get some economic assistance from South Korea. So I think there is some kind of mutual interest between the North and the South. Normally it's very common to make a proposal, a major proposal on Liberation Day of Korea, Liberation Day speech by the president.
Right. So it's coming up on this Friday.
Yeah, that's
President
right.
Park Geun-hye will make a speech
Yeah,
on
exactly.
that day. So the message that she sends or she delivers on that Liberation Day speech will be key in determining where this relations will head.
Yeah, I think so. So in my view, it's very important what kind of message will be released on Park Geun-hye's Liberation Day speech. So I hope there should be some kind of very good offer to attract North Korea in making a good relationship with South Korea.
To come back to the negotiating table.
I think we can expect something more positive and inviting this time. Yeah. Well, Dr. Wun ByungChoi, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Do join us again next time.
Yeah.
Face a one-day entry ban. 77.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best. With Na Hyung-kyung and Daniel Che.
Arirang News. Arirang News.
On Early Edition at 6.
A former UN Special Rapporteur on violence against women has heavily criticized Japan for its lack of repentance on the wartime sexual slavery issue. Her name is Radhikakumaraswamy, and our Yurian has more.
Marking the 50 years since the end of World War II in 1996, Radhikakumaraswamy released a report to the UN on the history of Japan's military sexual enslavement to raise international awareness over the issue. She concluded through the report that Japan's enslavement of foreign women was a violation of international law and urged Tokyo to make an official apology.
And from what we saw and heard from these comfort women, it was very clear that it was a situation of slavery. They were kept in very small cubicles and in little cubicles and were given and were made to take care of Japanese soldiers. Quite a large number actually, but sort of more than 8 a day at least. So it was a situation to us of slavery.
Japan did make a partial apology back in 1993 through the Kono statement, but recently re-examined the document, casting doubt on whether its admittance of coercing women into sexual slavery was based on solid evidence. But Kumaraswamy says there's ample evidence.
Looking at some historical material on this issue, as well as interviews with Japanese women's NGOs, makes it very clear that this was mostly coercive.
She went on to say that Japan's efforts to legitimize the sexual enslavement system during that time period simply made no sense.
And of course, this happened because the Japanese army felt this was better than letting the army loose on the civilian population. There had been a lot of rapes in Nanking. And so it responded by having this system of military sexual slavery. But that's not a response by any stretch of the imagination.
Expressing frustration over Japan's recent hardline stance, Kumaraswamy emphasized that Japan needs to provide the victims the compensation and justice they so deserve.
It is very clear from the evidence that this was a coercive set of practices. It is also very clear that it did not come up in the Tokyo discussions. So why not accept do the right thing, apologize and give compensation? Why is it not being done? I think, and that is
Yurian, Arirang News.
A political storm is brewing in Baghdad as Iraq's president nominated a new prime minister to replace the incumbent Nouri Maliki. The president's move comes after Maliki expressed his will not to step aside the day before. Shin Se-min has the latest.
Iraqi President Fuad Masum has named a prime minister to end Nouri Maliki's 8-year rule, but Maliki is refusing to go after deploying special forces on the streets of Baghdad. Speaking on state television Monday, Masum said he hopes Hyder al-Abadi would succeed in forming a new government that would protect the Iraqi people and unify the country against a growing threat of radical Sunni militants. But the president's public rejection for Maliki's bid for third term has raised the stakes in the fierce battle for political control. Abadi now has 30 days to form a new government that can win parliamentary approval. However, Maliki accused Masum of carrying out a coup against the constitution and the political process. Maliki's Shiite-dominated bloc won the most parliament seats in April's election. U.S. President Barack Obama welcomed Masum's decision. He said it was an important step on a path towards a more inclusive government that will unite Iraq's different communities.
Urge all Iraqi political leaders to work peacefully through the political process in the days ahead. Now, this new Iraqi leadership has a difficult task. The United States stands ready to support a government that addresses the needs and grievances of all Iraqi people.
Meanwhile, Kurdish forces continue their battle against Islamic State militants in the north and west of Iraq with the help of American airstrikes. U.S. aircraft on Monday hit 4 militant checkpoints and destroyed several of the group's vehicles near Mount Sinjar, where thousands of people of the Yazidi religious sect have taken refuge. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
A man who inspired so many people to carry on and find strength to carry on is no longer with us. 63-year-old Robin Williams was found dead in his home in California.
Right, he has suffered from severe depression and is believed to have taken his own life. But one thing for sure is that he did make the world laugh and smile.
Definitely. Unfortunately, he did expire in the presence of appreciative audience. Many comedic performers push themselves to continually provide great joy, but they experience extreme residual effects after the curtain comes down.
Right, and as U.S. President Barack Obama puts it, he was many, many things, but he was certainly one of a kind. Our Kim Min-ji has this story.
Actor and comedian Robin Williams has died at the age of 63. According to Marin County Police, Williams was pronounced dead shortly after noon on Monday local time in an apparent suicide at his home in Northern California. Preliminary cause of death is believed to be asphyxia. His publicist says the actor had been battling severe depression of late. In a statement, his wife Susan Schneider says she was utterly heartbroken over losing her husband and best friend and asked people to remember Williams for the countless moments of joy and laughter he gave to millions. Born in Chicago in 1951, Williams studied theater at Juilliard School in New York. He entered into the homes and hearts of America as an alien visitor in the 1970s TV series Mork and Mindy. He went on to act in more than 100 television shows and movies, starring as a lovable father turned nanny in Mrs. Doubtfire and a fatherly therapist in Good Will Hunting, which won him an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. In the past, Williams had openly talked about his battle with alcohol and drugs, and he recently visited a rehabilitation center to, as he put it, fine-tune his sobriety. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
On to the ongoing investigation in the April ferry disaster. Prosecutors have decided not to indict the late de facto owner of the sunken Seoul ferry, Yu Byung-choi, for embezzling millions of dollars and evading taxes. The Incheon District Prosecutor's Office, in its interim report released Tuesday, said there was no legal basis to pursue charges against the deceased Yu. The report did, however, show that the prosecution has indicted his eldest son, Yoo Dae-gyun, on charges of misappropriating some $7 million, as well as 2 others for helping him evade capture. Investigators have said negligence on part of the ferry operator played a major role in the accident, most notably an overloading of cargo on the ferry for the sake of profit. At least 300 people were killed when the vessel capsized and sank on the morning of April 16th. Korea's smallest handset manufacturer, Pentech, has filed for court receivership due to severe cash shortages. In a statement, the company said it would use all means at its disposal to normalize management as soon as possible. Pentech still has to pay back some tens of millions of dollars in bonds and failed to secure enough cash to repay debts that was due on Monday. The Seoul Central District Court will decide whether to accept the receivership. If it does, Pentech will have to submit its normalization plan to the court within 2 months. Pentech holds about 10% of the domestic handset market share.
Now we are right in the middle of August, but the temperatures have become more bearable in Seoul at least.
Right, and let's find out if we can expect cooler days ahead by turning to our Michelle Bach at the Weather Center. Michelle?
Good evening, and currently it is still hot outside with temperatures into the high 20s to the low 30s across the nation. However, things will cool off in the next few hours, leading into a chilly evening. And tomorrow we can expect a cloudy day nationwide with high temperatures similar to today. Now, after tomorrow, we're expecting rain starting in the southern regions, which will last until Friday. But by Sunday and Monday, the whole nation will see showers, so make sure to plan your weekend accordingly. Now, going over to our temperature readings. Seoul will top out the Wednesday morning at 22 before reaching up to 28 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will top out at 29 and 28 degrees. And moving over to other regions, Jeju Island tops over to 29, while Dokdo and Mangkeungang both tops to 26. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and back to you guys.
Thank you for that, Michelle. And that's all we have for this hour. Thank you for staying with us. This has been Daniel Chan.
And I'm Hyundai. Do join us again tomorrow, same time.